Hi, I'm Christine, and welcome to episode 3 of series 2. This episode is called Here Come the Boys. So let me do a quick recap on last episode, where I had just split up with my young boyfriend and I had stopped going to AA meetings. So if you're sitting comfortably, I'll begin. So there's a big new 5-star hotel opening in Glasgow. I'm determined to get involved in that. And I did. But I was offered a position that was much more junior than I was used to having. And obviously I had to accept a salary that went with that job. But as far as I was concerned, this was almost like a career move for me, you know, to be involved in this company and to be involved in the very first hotel of this type. And it was a very big hotel. It was one of the biggest hotels. It was nearly 300 bedrooms. So I just had to suck it up. I was part of the hotel opening team, and that meant the hours were relentless. It literally was like working night and day. And you can imagine the friction and the arguments that were going on between my parents, me, and my son as well. My new job was physically and mentally exhausting. Very, very stressful. And I was used to being a boss. And in this particular job, I had a boss watching my every move. And we didn't get on at all. From day one, we did not get on. She was younger than me, she was aggressive, and she was always right. So that added to the stress as well. If you can remember in series 1, before I became a mother, my work pattern was to discard any job, or even any person actually, that didn't serve me anymore. You can see that I just went from job to job, constantly on the move, never looking back, never staying anywhere too long. But now I felt trapped. I had to keep this job. I had responsibilities now. I had a son that I had to bring up. So it seemed that tensions were everywhere, you know, at home and at work. And my mum especially would start on me every night I got home from work. And every night I got home from work, she'd ask me the same question. Where have you been and what time do you call this? And every night I gave her the same answer. I've come from work, something happened and I had to stay on. She rightly felt that she had far too much responsibility with my son. She had to help him with his homework and she had to put him to his bed. And that was 100% right. There's no question about it. But what could I do? I felt stuck having to work such long hours. It was just too shattered to argue. And I just actually didn't know how to fix it. I was unhappy too. I was frustrated and I was tired all the time. And if I wasn't feeling pressure from my mum, I was feeling pressure from my boss. It felt like I was locked in a cage and everyone could see me, but nobody had the keys to open the cage and let me out. I was making promises to my son of what we would both do on my days off. And inevitably something would go wrong at work and I would get called in. So he unfortunately got used to being let down. More pressure. I was just managing to get through to the end of the month with this salary. And I had stress coming at me from all directions. I wasn't going to AA meetings and I wasn't reaching out for any help. My life was consumed with this job, which actually was beginning to feel that it was defining me. There just seemed no time to do anything except work and fleetingly spend some time with my son. And I was suffering with undiagnosed depression, which went on for another 5 years before I sought help. So I still had the worry that I would be sectioned. I don't know if you remember back in, maybe it was episode 2 of the first series, when I had to be seen by a psychiatrist. And he always told me that if ever I had mental health issues in the future, that I would be sectioned. And so that was a terrible, terrible thought. The thought of that happening to me was probably the most horrifying thing that I could think of. So that kept me away from the doctor, as well as what my mother had said to me as well. But life to me was beginning to feel pointless. It was beginning to feel a bit futile. Just no happiness. There was just no time. I felt I had no one in my corner, no one I could talk to. And that went on for years. It seemed like there was a black cloud over my head and it followed me everywhere. When I did go to the doctor all these years later, I just finally broke down. I'd kept that depression to myself for all this time, and it was quite overwhelming to finally speak to somebody who understood. But as I was being diagnosed and started to take the first lot of medication, a pattern began to emerge, and the pattern was that none of the medication being suggested for me was working. So I don't know how it works now, but in those days you had to be on an antidepressant for 3 months. If it didn't suit you, you had to be off it for 3 months. And then you would try another one, so you would be on that antidepressant for 3 months. And if that didn't work, you would be off that antidepressant. So that went on for more than a year. On, off. And I think must have been worse. I don't even remember much about that year, to be honest with you, but that must have been even worse than having the depression itself. But finally, in the end, they did find the right medication for me. They found an antidepressant that worked. And the first time I felt the effects of that, I remember saying to myself, wow, so this is normal living. And the black cloud started to lift, and in time, it just completely disappeared. But in my own head, I struggled with the fact that I had depression. I regarded myself to be a strong person. I was bringing up a child practically in my own. Look at all the things I had endured in my life. And it took a long time for me to be persuaded and believe about the old chemical imbalance thing. So I was still working in this big posh hotel in Glasgow, still working the long hours, but my boss had left. So I was now in charge, and I had a great team of people working with me. So this made all the difference. And they would, say to me, come on, you get home, get up the road, for your wee boy and that. So things were starting to change. And at work, I had a good pal called Sarah, and she was always, dying to get out on time because she went to the gym after work. And she said to me, why don't you come as well? It'd be great for your stress and, just do something as a woman, not as a mother or as a daughter or as a work person. So I went with her, and from the very first time I was in the gym, there began my love of the gym, of the classes, of the weights. And our gym had a sauna, had a steam room. The whole experience was just fantastic. And it really helped with my stress levels. And now my son was a wee bit older, he was able to kind of look after himself a wee bit more. So that kind of let me off the hook a wee bit. And at last I was getting to do something for myself, and I really was enjoying it. And it wasn't related to work. So I started to look and to feel so much better. In fact, I was heading towards outside confidence 15, but still inside confidence 0. I was looking the best I had ever looked. I became super fit, which was working well, as I say, to reduce the stress levels. And my newfound super confidence with men had made me quite a flirty woman. That was a new experience for me. So my friend Sarah and I at work, we're both looking for a new laundry company, and we were approached by a small company based in Maryhill. And we decided to go and inspect their premises. They were rough and ready, but they were likeable, and they were very keen to get the contract. And after a few more meetings, we decided we would give them a chance. And as two of the guys were very involved in the business, we saw them all the time. They were in and out the hotel every day, picking up laundry and bringing laundry back. And, there was the obvious chit-chats, and they were both, involved in the gym as well. Not our gym, but they were both gym goers, and they were also interested in boxing as well. So there's a lot of chats. There was an occasional cup of tea and, a bit of banter and that. And then they invited me and Sarah onto their table at a boxing night in a nearby hotel. So, oh yes, we said. Oh yes, straight away we said we got pure glammed up and joined the table. All men. Also rough and ready types, but gentlemen, completely respectful of us. I wasn't drinking, and neither was Sarah, because she was driving, and what a great night we had. What a laugh. It was just what I was needing. And at the end of the night, there was a suggestion that we should do this again sometime. And we said, oh, yeah, definitely. So that progressed to them taking me and Sarah out. Always the two of us, never just one, for lunch. Sometimes if we both had the same day off and my son was at school, we would go out for lunch with them. And they would take us round and show us their other businesses. They were great company. It was all very amiable. But Sarah and I just couldn't figure out why they were doing this. We couldn't, because there was no moves being made on us. They were very upfront about all of them being married. So we just kind of left that as an open question because we didn't actually know. They were doing a great job with the laundry and we were feeling very relaxed in their company, so it was all good. Then one day, a friend who worked with me called Gillian just came round to visit me with her husband, which they had done lots of times, and they brought their two kids. So in they come, and her husband, Sandy, says, oh, what are you up to these days, Christine? Oh, I said, and I started to tell him about what we call the Mary Hill mob. And he looked at me like that and he said, what's their names? And I told him. He said, right, Gillian, get ready. Put the kids in the car. We're leaving right now. I said, what's wrong? What's this? He said, if you want my advice, Christine, you get your trainers on and you run as fast as you can away for these guys. You have no idea what you're getting yourself involved in. These guys are under surveillance. And that means that you and Sarah are under surveillance as well. He says, in fact, if my boss finds out that I'm in your house today, I could be in trouble. These guys are serious bad news, Christine. This is not a smart move on your part to be involved. He said, at least socially, you need to stop this. Because see, when the shit hits the fan and the truth comes out, which it will, you could be in trouble for putting the hotel's reputation at risk by being involved with men like this. And it's only a matter of time. Please listen to me, he says, and stop seeing the guys. If you have to continue working with them, fine, but you need to start to take a step back and no more socialising at all. So with that, they left and they never came back to my house again. Of course, we were still working with Gillian every day, but that subject was never brought up again. So Sarah and me, we took Sandy's advice. He was a policeman. He knew the script and we stopped all the socialising. But they continued to work for us. And I mean, they did a great job and, they were brilliant customer service and they pulled out every stop. So we had absolutely no complaints. Then about 10 months later, we heard all the businesses had folded. They had been arrested and jailed for money laundering and drugs. I thought it was quite exciting, but Sarah was horrified, absolutely horrified. And that was me, hooked on Glasgow gangsters. What an absolute fanny I was. The hotel was well known for champagne breakfasts almost every day. Shady types monopolised the hotel lobby Monday to Friday during the day. I think as well, so did undercover police. And amongst the staff, it was said that these breakfasts, champagne breakfasts, were to celebrate successful drug deals and deliveries. To this day, I don't actually know if that was true, but judging by the men who participated in the champagne breakfasts, which could be quite loud and rowdy, and were talking next to the hotel guests, but their breakfast was more likely to be a full English. But the hotel was making good money from these breakfasts, and they happened regularly for a good length of time. No doubt undercover police were definitely there as well. And then suddenly they stopped. A few regular faces disappeared, so perhaps they had been an outcome. But these shady types still continued to be in the hotel, always men. Only teas and coffees, no alcohol was being drunk, and they would be in small groups, always speaking in hushed voices, as if they were having a meeting. So naturally, I wanted involved in this scene. Clearly, I was absolutely mental. This type of man, after all, had been on my radar since I was very young. So up I go to the lobby, under the guise of checking the standards. I was very confident now with my new look. I unleashed myself at a table of men I'd had my eye on. "Good morning, gentlemen," I said, "and how are you all today?" And from there, very, very gradually, it grew to me having a coffee every morning with them. Every morning they were in. And if they were in and I wasn't about, they would ask for me, and up I would go. And then one of the younger guys asked me if I wanted to meet him for lunch on one of my days off. To the Rogano. So I said, absolutely. So at that time, of course, the Rogano was the place to go in Glasgow. It's no longer there now, but it had an incredible reputation for probably 40 or 50 years. So it was a very enjoyable lunch. He was a nice guy. He was good company. And when he asked me a second time, I jumped at it. No hesitation. And this time I went to Gleneagles. I love Gleneagles. And through the lunch, he said to me, "I've got a proposal for you, Christine. I've been thinking about you living on your own," because they all knew I was single. "And maybe you're not getting any action. So I was wondering if you wanted me to shag you. I'd be quite happy to help you out in that department, no problem. I mean, you're a bit older than the usual bird I would go for. But actually, I quite fancy it. I mean, you're a cracking wee woman and you get a great wee body. And you'll be safe with me. So just say. In fact, I've got a pal who could help us out if you fancied a threesome. He said he would definitely pump you. I'm not making any moves on you in front of the boys as they all like and respect you, and I don't want to spoil that. So you don't have to answer me the now. Take my number and we can make this a private arrangement just between you and me." I had no words except to say, "Thank you very much for your kind offer," but the answer is no. That is the end of today's episode. And next week we continue. As if that's not enough about gangsters, next week we continue on the theme of Glasgow gangsters. There is lots more to come, including a shootout. It's all happening. So please join me next Wednesday, usual time. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please tell your family and friends. Always the more the merrier. Thanks for your company. See you next week.